The summit hall of Citadel Veyron floated above a gas giant the color of bruised violet, its spires needling the stars like accusations. Inside, 47 alien delegates sat in concentric rings around a central dais, each one representing a civilization older than humanity's first fire. At the highest tier, robed in cascading silver, Emperor Kale Veyron studied a holographic projection with an expression that had not changed in 300 years of reign, absolute, carved contempt. "The human petition," said his adjutant, a tall Sarati whose 3 eyes gleamed amber, "requests a Class 7 naval berth in the outer corridor. They cite defensive necessity." A ripple of laughter moved through the hall like a slow tide. The Garathi delegates clicked their mandibles. The twin ambassadors of the Vel Syndicate exchanged a look that needed no translation. Even the stoic Marines, who communicated only through color shifts in their skin, flickered a derisive yellow. Emperor Kale Veyron leaned back and steepled his fingers. He had studied humanity's file. A young species, barely 4 centuries into space. Their largest warships were clumsy fusion drives barely cracking .4 light. Their hull alloys were quaint. Their weapons were the sort of thing the Empire had discarded 2,000 years ago as insufficiently elegant. The intelligence summary had been practically apologetic on their behalf. Humans construct with passion where others construct with precision. Do not mistake the two, the universe has a habit of rewarding one over the other. "Denied," said the Emperor. He turned to the next petition. He had forgotten them already, until the observatory alarm sounded 6 weeks later. Admiral Ethan Cross had not slept in 4 days. He did not particularly notice. Sleep was a bookkeeping problem he delegated to off-shift hours, and right now there were no off-shift hours. There was only the ship. He stood at the center of Prometheus Dock, a hollowed-out asteroid 16 kilometers across, carved by 3 generations of United Earth Fleet engineers into the greatest fabrication yard humanity had ever built. Around him, 10,000 workers moved in coordinated silence across gantries that stretched so far they disappeared into haze. Arc welders burned like fallen stars. Magnetic cranes swung components the size of city blocks into alignment with millimeter precision. The noise was extraordinary, a constant, layered roar that Ethan had long ago stopped hearing consciously. It was simply the sound of purpose. The ship at the center of the dock had no official name yet. The crew called her the Answer. She was 4.2 kilometers from bow to stern. Her hull was a laminate of collapsed lattice carbon, reactive ablative foam, and a gravitic shear field array so dense it could redirect kinetic projectiles at the quantum boundary. Her spine housed a graviton lance the Empire's intelligence branch had deemed theoretically impossible without a Tier 5 civilization's manufacturing base. Her 17 secondary drives, each one capable of accelerating a standard Empire cruiser to .6 light on its own, were arranged in a fractal bloom pattern Ethan had sketched on a napkin during a budget meeting 3 years ago. He had been bored. The napkin had become a revolution. "Admiral." Lieutenant Yara Osei appeared at his elbow, tablet in hand. "The Emperor's surveillance probes entered the outer system an hour ago. They're broadcasting on open channels." Ethan smiled without looking up from the hull stress readout on his wrist display. "Good. Let them look." Emperor Kale Veyron watched the feed from the surveillance probes in private, in the cold blue glow of his personal command chamber. His adjutant stood behind him, silent. The Emperor had dismissed everyone else. What filled his display should not have existed. The vessel dwarfed anything in his Imperial fleet. That alone would have been remarkable. But size was not the thing that held him. It was the geometry. The hull was not built the way any spacefaring civilization built hulls, it was grown, layer by simultaneous layer, by fabricators working in a recursive pattern his best engineers would need months to decode. The gravitic shear array pulsed in a frequency his instruments identified as theoretically impossible without a collapsed matter substrate, yet there it was, steady and calm, like a heartbeat. The weapon along its spine registered on his sensors as a mass driver scale event, and then corrected itself upward. It was not a mass driver. It was something his threat classification system filed under a category it had never populated before, unknown, re-evaluate tier assumption. He watched for a long time. On the feed, a single human in a worn gray uniform walked along the exterior gantry beside the hull, a figure small as a microbe against that vast dark surface, and placed one hand flat against the metal. Just rested it there. Not checking an instrument. Not making a repair. Simply touching it. The gesture was so quiet, so private, that Kale Veyron felt obscurely that he was watching something he was not meant to see. That was Admiral Ethan Cross saying goodbye to 4 years of sleepless nights, and hello to something that had never existed before. The Emperor did not know this. But he felt it anyway. The emergency communique arrived at Prometheus Dock 14 hours later. It bore the seal of Citadel Veyron, a sunburst through a broken ring, and was addressed, with precise new formality, to Admiral Ethan Cross, United Earth Fleet, Shipyard Prometheus. Ethan read it once, folded it into his breast pocket, and went back to work. Lieutenant Osei caught up with him on the central gantry. "Sir. The Emperor is requesting a second summit. He's offering the Class 7 berth. Full diplomatic recognition. A seat on the Interior Council. I know what it says. What do I tell him?" Ethan Cross stopped walking. He looked up at the answer, at the 4 kilometers of human stubbornness, human sleeplessness, human refusal to be told what was theoretically possible. Around him the dock roared on, 10,000 people building the next thing already, because humans were never building just one thing. "Tell him we'll attend," he said. "Tell him we're sending the ship as our diplomatic envoy. She fits the berth. Probably." He paused. "He should know we already started the next one." Osei blinked. We have?" Ethan was already walking again, tablet in hand, pulling up a napkin sketch he had made last Tuesday. Dock 7. "We broke ground this morning. In Citadel Veyron, Emperor Kale Veyron received the response." He read it 3 times. Then he looked out at the gas giant below, the same view he had held for 3 centuries, comfortable and fixed and eternal, and for the first time in a very long while, he felt the specific, sharp discomfort of being surprised. He turned to his adjutant. "Pull every intelligence file on the human shipyards. All of them. Everything we have." He paused. "And get me their engineering theory texts. Their history of construction. Their napkins. Their napkins, Your Eminence? Whatever they write on when they are thinking." He settled back into his throne and looked at the stars. Apparently that is where it begins. Outside, in the cold dark between star systems, the Answer moved under her own power for the first time, 17 drives lighting in fractal sequence, a bloom of blue-white fire that the Empire's observation posts would log, argue about, and never quite explain. She crossed the outer corridor in 40 minutes. She was not the largest thing humanity had ever built. She was merely the largest thing humanity had built so far. At Prometheus Dock, Dock 7 was already 200 meters deep, 10,000 hands already moving, arc welders burning like fallen stars, because that is what humans do with a victory. They use it as a foundation, pour concrete over it, and build the next floor.